So let's say that we told the story, you know, at a higher level. Let's say for these kids that are stage A, very limited vocabulary. How could we reuse this? Would you expect a stage A kid with 100, 200 words of vocabulary to be able to retell the story?
No.
No. But could you, for example, where you're talking and the kid is performing something?
Almost like ad-libbing form, just sort of like...
Yeah, and a lot of it you do already, like when you put different vocabularies on the board and then you say, run up and touch apple, you know, touch father, you know, touch noodles, touch whatever it is. So we can tell a higher story, but then scale the activity to the kid's level.
The only question I have, I suppose, would be, as I'm looking at trying to incorporate this into, I'm going to say, a medium-low level rigid course. There are more rigid courses than we have to deal with here. I suppose maybe just spending more time talking to my students, even over the same content, may have a similar effect and would not disrupt the, shall we say, requirements from the yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it would have the same effect because the students are listening to something, and it's something that seems somehow relevant to them because they have to fill out book work and they want their parents to see they're getting good grades or whatever in the class, and so they're kind of paying attention.
Yeah. That brings out a really good point. One reason why we use storytelling is this. Think about this, that when you're speaking English in your class, what percentage of what you're speaking is either classroom management or explaining how to do an exercise? That's a significant amount of the input the kids are getting from you. You're explaining to them how to do the exercise, or you know, take out your book, open your book, okay, we want you to put these in the past tense. After a month of being in class, how different is that input going to be? In other words, is it a lot of the same input again and again and again and again?
It is, but they respond to it much quicker, faster.
They're getting better at responding to that input, but they're not getting other kinds of input.
You're trying, what the point is you're trying to observe that. Could you kind of maybe cheat and tell us what the point is?
No, I just think that one of the advantages of using a story is that we're going to introduce all different kinds of, the word, I don't know, you know, he sold noodles and he became rich. I don't know that that would have come up in the classroom. Certainly not in terms of classroom management.
Okay.
It would only have come up if you had a textbook lesson where specifically they're learning the word rich or something like that. And so by telling a story, reflection. I'm teaching what am I teaching? ESL grade 1. I don't know that they would even know that word yet.
What a word.
Reflection, because it hasn't come up. So the idea is that when we're telling a story, words are going to come up that you wouldn't normally expect or you didn't plan. When I started telling this, I didn't know that the word reflection was going to come up, but it came up.
So, I mean, so the question that I'm asking at this point is, you know, what exactly would be your recommendations along the lines of, you know, the philosophical approach to tactical incorporation? You know, I mean, because if we have semi-rigid stuff and it doesn't involve storytelling, what are you suggesting?
Okay. Well, I would say that, okay, in other words, how could you employ it into a Sesame Street curriculum with it?
Sure, or other.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So what I'll do is, for example, you find a story or a dialogue that's in the next lesson you're going to teach. Before you ever even open the book, before you pre-teach or anything, you might do a picture story that has a similar theme or a similar idea. Get the kids to come up and retell it, or get the kids to come up and act it out, or however you want to utilize it. And now you're preparing them, and then the next lesson or whenever they turn to it, and it's in the book. So it could be part of your pre-teaching. So you already have pre-teaching time built into your schedule, right? So I'm just saying that this is a way of pre-teaching by using a story.
I do that. I mean, I use the pictures in the book, essentially.
Yeah.
You tell the story. After, usually, actually when introducing the vocabulary,
Yeah.
I'm kind of, well, if possible, it depends. Like, try to actually outline the story where possible. Like if you get the word in the story, you're going to read this and such is going to happen. And in that sentence, you'll be actually using the word that they just learned. And then I will summarize the story and have them look at the pictures the day before we actually read it, if it's like the treasures.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's like that. You know, we're not reading it. I'm just like, let's go through the pictures and I kind of slowly tell in a very general way.
Yeah.
the most important points of the story, and also ask them, what do you think's going to happen? Just by looking, because the pictures really, especially in those books, there's a lot of information that's in the picture, just not written.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. But one of the advantages of doing it this way is just that we haven't opened our books. Now, I know a lot of the Sesame Street teachers, they've got the posters and cards and things that were made from the book. That's another way of keeping them from opening the book. But the kids still know that that's a Sesame Street lesson that you're putting up on the board that they're going to do in the book. And so this is, hey, let me just tell you a story, or even just get them to sit on the floor and relax, whatever, give them a candy or something, and just let them sit and relax and just listen to a story, and now it's entertainment. You don't even have to tell them that they're going to learn anything. Yeah. And then also the kids, and I know you all know this, the kids get really excited if they get to come to the board and do anything. So it's, hey, you want to play a game? Can you come up and tell the story about Kung Fu Panda?
Is it also beneficial, I mean, okay, using a story, a heavy monologue story in pre-teaching would be very good.
Right.
What about another classroom stuff? I mean, I'm kind of figuring out that maybe I'm not so wrong after all for talking a lot in class.
Yeah.
So that's also something we can pull from this.
Yeah.
You're emphasizing the story, but that's also true. Am I kind of getting this correct?
You're talking, yeah, sure. I mean that's the thing. Think about it. They hired Western teachers because they want the kids to acquire our accent. Let me ask you a question. How many classrooms have you walked in and the kids had a South African accent or a British accent? Would that be zero?
Classroom?
The English that most of the kids are speaking tends to be North American English within North American type pronunciation. And yet they've had teachers from South Africa, they've had teachers from Britain, they've had teachers from New Zealand and Australia, they've had teachers from many different countries, and yet their accent remains this sort of North American. So that must mean that they're not modeling on that teacher.
Teachers are not from the States in the schools that I have seen.
Right.
I mean, I'm from the States, but I mean, you know, show of hands, how many people here in the room are from the States, you know?
Yeah, a lot of them are not. You're right. A lot of them are not. And yet, when you walk in the classroom, do you find that the kids have British pronunciation or South African pronunciation?
Rarely. But why do you suppose that is?
I think it's what we're talking about right now. Is that they're not getting enough input. You know, ALG says you need 800 hours of input. They're not getting enough input from the teacher to create a model. Okay, when you go to Europe, it's really interesting. When you go to Europe, now I don't know about now. When I was a student, when I was in Europe, you know, it's just a long time ago, quite a bit older than some of the people in here. But when I was a student in Europe, there were two completely distinct departments at universities and even in high schools. There was American English and there was British English. And when you talked to the kids who were studying in the British English department, they really had British accent. And clearly you knew they were German or they were from wherever, but their English was British English, and the North Americans had a North American accent. Because they're getting enough input that it actually affects their speaking. How can a student be sitting with a South African or British teacher for a whole year, and then at the end of the year, we don't have?
It's not American.
Yeah.
Probably because they're listening to the CDs. They're getting more accent from the CD than from the teacher because we're so busy with this. Let's be interactive and get into groups, and you know that's useful, but the native teacher is there to talk.
Right. Okay, so that's, I think that Matthew said to me once that when he's doing DIYs even, he said you try and keep a constant stream of...
I talk a lot in class, I really do. Because I know that for example, when I studied Chinese, I had two teachers. When I was doing privates, alternating days, and one would just like, here's the story, read it. And the other one would read it first to me.
Yeah.
She would read it to me, read all the vocabulary words, and make me listen. And it was just like much easier for me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's guesswork. You just have to go on intuition and totally.
Yeah, very good.
So certainly, I feel that listening is an incredibly important component to it. It's one of the most important for sure.